Hello, everyone. This is your Chancellor of Lionel University, Martin Rooney, and here, as always, with the Chief Academic Officer, Nick Barringer, who last time had a different, I'm surprised he doesn't have a different, oh, it is still there, the science geek of the university. And today we've got another Roar session for you, and this one I think is gonna blow your mind. We are gonna be wired to win.
Wearable tech in the age of optimization.
Well, take it away.
Let's
Nick.
go. What's that? Where are we going to win? We're going to talk about, being the science geek. I was so excited. I couldn't sleep. We were going to talk about this today because Martin knows one of my favorite things. And I think it's become one of your favorite things, wearables.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny what the irony of that is that Nick said, man, I couldn't sleep, which will ruin your data on some of the wearables that we're going to talk about today. And today's topic, right? I think for everybody that is listening to this, you may think, wearables, yeah, I know about that, or I don't need those, or I'm not ready for that yet. And here are a few things I'll say right off the start. Number one, you're probably using more technology than you think. But number two, and Nick and I talked about this, if you are not embracing technology, if you are not adopting technology, either for your own personal use or the use of the people that you work with, quote unquote, from the science geek, you will be left in the dust, right? So today we're going to talk about different tech that is available, in particular in the wearable space, but we're going to talk about maybe how we got here. Hey guys, we are not sponsored by any tech today or anything like that, but we're going to talk about the tech that we are using and that we are familiar most with. But the biggest thing that I want is today, it gets you excited about understanding what it is, understanding the habits you need to have to use them, but even more importantly, how it can make your training or even your identification of things in your own health better, right? So, Nick, maybe let's start off, and we had talked about this already because you've had so much time in the science lab and everything else. Walk us through, like, hey, what were your early experiences with using quote unquote technology? It doesn't even have to just be wearable, but just so we get everybody up to speed of where we are today.
Yeah. So, we were talking, one of my first kind of, I guess, wearable devices was like the old school Garmin GPS to track my runs, in the military. And it was pretty big. If anybody remembers, it was almost like having a cell phone on your wrist. And, it was using the satellites. And at the time you would have to wait, like if it was a cloudy day, you'd lose some of your run because it would cover up the signal. So that was kind of like my first foray into using kind of the wearable tech. And then obviously, from a practitioner side, when I was at the 75th Ranger Regiment, I remember I got really excited because I got a bod pod, and that was the tech to measure body composition.
That was
At the time.
gold standard. Yeah.
That was the gold standard. That was what the NFL Combine was using. So I remember getting this, giant egg, and I would measure all these guys in it, and it was using basically, Archimedes principle, the same thing for underwater weighing, but air, looking at air displacement. It was a body density model. And just getting great data from that. So I've always loved tech and kind of that space because I feel like you can really communicate to that client or whoever you're working with, whoever your customer is, that information to give them that objective feedback that they can track their progress. Because even those rangers, they love to see, like, if they were trying to lose body fat, we could actually track it and show, okay, this is how much body fat you're losing, in this cycle, or how much muscle you're gaining. And clients love that. Like, who doesn't love that? I love that.
Yeah. Well, and hey, technology, for everybody listening, it makes things easier. You can get the same information that you always wanted to get, the same knowledge you wanted to get, but probably incredibly faster too. So I'm going to tell a story because you just brought that up about the Bod Pod. In the late 80s, early 90s, when I was an exercise science student at Furman University, one of the most arduous things we had to do was body composition testing. And we went old school. So here's what we did. Yes, there were the calipers, but we didn't trust the calipers too much. So we would actually underwater weigh. And I remember when I got to be the subject was one of the hardest and actually a little bit scary things you ever had to do. You had to try to expel as much oxygen as humanly possible while you're in a dunk tank and then try to sink to the bottom for like 30, 40, 50 seconds while they're trying to weigh you underwater. And hey, because you want a good score, like you said, you're trying to expel every bit of oxygen, which takes forever, and you're hoping you don't get it in there. And then we would have to do all this different stuff to get this number, which was incredible. And then we also had to do VO2 max. And when we did the VO2 max tests, we would have masks on. You're running on a treadmill, but we're actually measuring all the blood gases, trying to figure it out. Guys, this was like the most arduous, crazy stuff. And there was all this mathematics behind it that maybe it didn't work, where now all that stuff can happen for you like this. And it's probably a million times more accurate. Now, my first exposures to tech that I like to talk about, when I was an NFL combine trainer and had was helping run one of the top programs in the country out of the Parisi Speed School, and we produced such legendary results. We in particular had laser timing system, right? And guys, that was just game changer, right? Like the stopwatch, when you're trying to time a 10-yard dash, it's impossible with a stopwatch. Anybody that says they're doing that with a stopwatch, man, I would question that, because there's too small of variance that can happen from just how you react or when they go to get accurate times that can then tell you if your training is working or not. But then we would also use, like you were just saying, we would use in bodies to get our body fat or different stuff. But we started originally with just calipers, right? But they were calipers that then had a computer on them that could tell you stuff instead of you doing the math. But then we moved into accelerometers on our bars to test bar speed. And now as I'm looking back, I was never resistant to tech. I was always trying to use it as fast as we could, down to, I remember it was called the Dartfish system. And I don't know why they came up with that name for that, but it was really an early biomechanical analysis tool that these were game changers for me. Like we were living on this stuff, that it really helped me to be able to produce the results that we did. And man, I'd love to say my eye is better than that, but it wasn't. It was a complementary tool. All these were complementary to what I was doing that was making me better, right? So first off, again, what Nick and I are both identifying is we've been embracing technology as it advances always. I'm going to continue to do that, and I'll give you the up to our most latest stuff that we're working on, with either athletes we train or ourselves. But I just wanted to get across that you're probably using more tech than you think. Hey, if you have one of these, if you've got a phone, you're using more tech than you think. I'll tell you that. And not to be resistant, like, oh, I'm better or it can't replace me. Think of it as it can be a complementary tool that can enhance you and make your stuff better. Do you agree with that, Nick, or what do you think?
Oh, wholeheartedly. I mean, it is a game changer, just from especially the data from something like an Oura Ring, right? In terms of, all that data that it's giving you skin temperature, it's giving you your blood oxygenation, it's giving you heart rate variability, right? It's giving your sleep, from one device,
I'm
right?
showing off all the data.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
was
and
my, this was my data from last night. Nick can be proud. Look at that, 47 heart rate.
yeah.
He's always jealous of my 31 HRV.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean
But
it's
yeah,
unbelievable, right? And so, one, from just a pure, like, the data you can get from it, but then two, from the coaching that you can do from it, because as Martin alluded to, different athletes. So if we have an athlete that's in New Jersey that neither one of us see or can tell, to be able to wake up in the morning in Texas or North Carolina and look at our phone or look on the computer and see how that athlete slept that night, and be like, hey, what happened, this night, or what did you do, or what do you like that's remarkable. Or anywhere in the world, I've had athletes in Germany or whatever wearing their Oura Ring, and you're getting that data.
yeah,
So I think that's just, it's so powerful, and especially with online coaching, it's a complete game changer.
yeah. Well, and hey, who he's talking about right there for everybody listening. So Nick and I, hey, for the last almost 20 years, I've been training Jim Miller. He has the most fights, most wins in UFC history. He's on the leaderboard in every category. Nick has been involved with us for years as well and has been a game changer in the training and what I believe as the longevity for Jim. And when you even ask Jim, probably the biggest game changer of the last bunch of years has been a combination of sleep and nutrition. So it has not been training. It's not some new fighting technique. It isn't some exercise, but in particular, I would say the Oura Ring, which I have mine right here. I keep mine in dock right now, and I want to make sure Nick knows I don't touch it, so I set it off, and then I get a bad reading score. We were talking about that before, but Jim, in particular, did not. We didn't know it that he wasn't sleeping well until you start tracking it. And then when we started tracking it, an interesting thing happens. He becomes aware, and then he starts addressing his behaviors to get better scores, and then he gets better and better and better scores, and then he starts doing better and better and better in the ring. And again, what's interesting is number one, we are tracking to get information, but there's another cool concept of when you're tracking, it influences habits and performance. So for instance, another one we could talk about right here is the Myzone. I wear the Myzone every day. And watch this. Not only can I track my own numbers all time and what I do, whoop, I got to save my stuff from yesterday, but watch this. Then people I work with that I train, I can see what they're doing every day. Same thing, no matter where they are in the world, I can see what they did for their workout, see how they're performing, what's going on. And, absolute game changer, right? So at first I'm like, tech, how much tech am I using? And then I realized, man, I'm using tons of tech. But maybe what we could talk about now, Nick, too, is not just, hey, we should have identified right there, guys, there are things you can track. There are things that you can have available that are incredible. It's only going to get better, but it's only as good as you using it, right? Like, hey, I had the MyZone and I would keep forgetting it at home at first, or I had the Oura Ring and there'd be a bunch of nights I would forget it, and then I can't string together enough things. I don't know. What do you think on that, the habits of that, and how important that is, Nick, for wearable?
It's everything. I mean, in science and in all this, like working with athletes or clients, is like, what are you going to do with the data? Right? Data is great. I love data. I'm one of those geeks. I love to look at it, but it's like, what actions are you going to take? Is it actionable? And to your point about like Jim, it was like, all right, you had a bad night of sleep. What led up to that? What habits contributed to that bad night of sleep? Let's take action. Let's change those habits, and then let's see, and then measure again. And so that's the only way this works.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and an interesting story, guys. Jim keeps getting sometimes bad sleep, and Nick and I will be yelling at him. And you know what it is? At first, you could say, hey, you got to have better blackout, or hey, he does live near a road. He says he hears cars. But lately, he has a gigantic bear that keeps tearing up his garbage cans, and his dogs in his house go wild. And then the dogs get out, and Jim will send us a video. He'll be, because Nick will say, Jim, what was happening? Because we can see, guys. We'll be like, hey, what was happening at 4 a.m. last night? Why are you up? What's going on? And then Jim will send us his Ring camera, or like he's got those motion sensor videos.
Yeah.
And it'll be Jim at 4 a.m. running out of his house, chasing after like a gigantic bear. We haven't seen the bear videos in a while, so I guess the good news is,
but that's a great point. It's like, okay, that data point of like that night of sleep, there's no coaching needs to be done. Like I can't, we can't control for a bear.
Yeah,
but the things you can control.
Yeah, we can't control the bear, but it's almost, one, I wanted to tell it to be funny, but now imagine it was, you have a baby or something like my nephew right now, and he's on the Oura. They just won the Talladega, right? Nick knows that. They just won Talladega this weekend at NASCAR. And hey, he's got a newborn now. And like, holy cow, he'll send me his Oura data, and he'll be like, guess who was up all night last night, or guess who was sick? And man, you will see how certain things can destroy your sleep, your readiness, and what's going on. But hey, even that, knowing it, maybe there's ways to manage it during the day no matter what, the information is more valuable that you have it than you don't have it, because
Yeah.
you either have to address it and manage it, or maybe he's got to nap through the day, or he's got to figure it out. But yeah, you can't string 2 weeks of those kind of nights together and think you're going to perform at the highest level, right? So there are pros and cons to getting that information. Nick and I have talked about it. So Nick, maybe tell us, you don't have to use the athletes' names, but maybe the cons of when people get too into the data, right?
So for some athletes, right, they're going to get into this data and they're competitive, and it can mess with them.
Yeah.
So if I look at my my Oura score, my Whoop score, whatever tracking device I look, and it says I had a bad night or I'm not recovered, but I got a game that day, I got a competition that day, that can be problematic. So for some folks, if you're using it for clients like that, they kind of get in their own head. Is maybe have them, they track it, they send it to you, and then I say, don't look at it. Don't look at it because it doesn't matter. We don't care. It's like I think the analogy, Jim,
which is easier said than done, because an athlete that has there's no way I wouldn't look. It'd be hard for me.
Right, yeah. Well, and so then again, if Martin's your athlete and you know that, and he's got a competition, he's got a fight, maybe you tell him not wear it the day before the fight. Right? You want to take that variable off. Yeah, it would be great. Again, this goes back to, it would be great to have that data as a data nerd. That would be great. But the risk of him looking at it and getting in his head versus what can you really do with the data that one night before fight night, I would say have the athlete not wear it.
Yeah, because we've experienced that. So Nick has, guys, we have this really cool data, which I think eventually we'll do something with, of Jim Miller. We got a lot of the fight week where he is cutting weight. We're looking at how that affects his sleep, how it affects his body temperature, because we're really heating him up to try to, really, have a thermal effect to help him lose that weight. But I agree, like every time, Nick, I'm nervous when he wakes up that day, because he knows the data. And, this is the part too. The athletes, like Nick said, they become not only intimate with the data, they really understand it, but they start to live by it. Like today, I got up, of course, another optimal score on my readiness. Now, and hey, it's not always that. But when I don't get that, now I'm like, hey, is this going to be a bad day? Or should I not really train hard? Or should I not do something? Could something happen? Man, like Nick is saying, you never want that on a day of performance. And in particular, I was telling Nick, an athlete, big time Division I athlete, track and field, that I talked to, his university has told him to stop wearing the ring because it was starting to freak him out on, hey, it's meet day. And they didn't sleep well that night because they're nervous about meet day. And now it says they're going to have a bad day. I mean, holy cow, you don't want to wake up with that kind of information, right? You got to.
No. And that's where
there's a double-edged sword to it.
It's a double-edged sword. And that's where, you might talk to that athlete. If you make that mistake, if you have somebody use wearables and they're worried about it, I got something for you. Just remind them that like Babe Ruth broke the home run records probably off of poor sleep, whiskey, and hot dogs. So, it came game time. Probably not a recipe for great longevity, but, athletes are going to athlete. You're going to be okay.
For sure. But you know what I mean? Like when somebody has that data, you'd love to. And I will say this too, speaking from experience now, a long time with the Oura, like today, it said, oh, optimal readiness. I don't feel, I'm not feeling like I woke up and I'm ready to explode out of the bed or whatever else. I think still it's using numbers, information, and it may not, maybe we talk about this. Hey, tech is great, but it's not the be all end all. In particular, like I've talked about with Nick, I'm still on the Gen 2 of the Oura. And a lot of times the only thing that messes up my stuff is deep sleep. It'll always say, oh, deep sleep wasn't good. Deep sleep wasn't good. Deep sleep wasn't good. And, maybe sometimes I say, wait a minute, like maybe could deep sleep not be measured as well or something like that?
Yes. Yeah, no, to your point. Yeah, it doesn't do as well as the stages. That's been shown.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. So then I feel better about it. And that I know, hey, I am still doing the most I can to get that sleep. But what I'm getting at is, imagine I let that drive me nuts and I didn't know that. Man, I could be, now I'm just now what would I start doing? Pounding melatonin and magnesium before I go to bed, trying to get a better deep sleep, but yet it's not going to measure that or something on a superhuman like myself.
You bring up two great points, Martin, with this data. It's like, one, understand that there are still limitations to this. That they're still not laboratory measures, right? We have laboratory measures. You go get a sleep study for a reason, particularly like stages and things going on. So understanding that it's not going to have that sensitivity. But then also, I'll also go with three things. The other piece of it is like when you talk about like a readiness score, right? You get a readiness score Whoop, you get a readiness score with Oura or another device. A lot of that is a black box algorithm that company creates based off of the other data metrics that really might not mean anything for you.
Yeah.
And so that's why I always prefer to look at the actual heart rate variability. Like, I kind of have my own, what I'm going to check versus just looking at a readiness score, because I don't know how they calculate it. I don't know how they weighed everything for that readiness score. And then the other piece of it is, although objective data is great, I love objective data, do not undervalue the subjective data of just asking your athlete or client, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And I was telling Martin this story at a very elite kind of special operations unit where they were tracking heat injuries, right? They had these wearables and they're doing all this stuff. And, they were like, okay, if this reading gets above a certain level, this person could have a heat injury. And so they were really paying attention to those people that started to kind of redline. And what they found is they were paying attention to this person that on this data looked like they were redlining, and then somebody else would have a heat injury that they weren't paying attention to. And they found the most effective strategy was just asking people how they felt. I feel a little off today. Oh, okay. Well, let's track them. I don't feel normal. I'm feeling hot. So never underestimate the power of just asking somebody how they
feel. And though, now the reverse, because Nick and I talked about this. Now watch this. At Training for Warriors. So, hey, I am in charge of a company called Training for Warriors. We have gyms throughout the world. Saying, imagine dealing with adult fitness, weekend warriors, if you will, not just high-level athletes. And hey, we all wear the Myzones. But I always say the ultimate assessment tool, the first thing is, how are you feeling today? Right? Like, always ask, like, because imagine somebody says, oh my God, I'm feeling horrible. I drank a bottle of wine last night, or man, I didn't sleep at all. I have a new baby, or, like this. If you don't know any of this, or how about this? I slipped and hurt my leg and my knee is killing me, and they don't tell you when it's leg day. Hey, it shouldn't be leg day, right there. So right off the bat, how you feeling or how you doing could tell you a lot, but it can't tell you everything. And that's why they work together, where in particular it was out of one of our East Coast facilities. They were really proud of this. And somebody came in, they're wearing the Myzone, and man, heart rate is spiking through the roof. Something's up. It even alerted them to that. And they got that guy to get checked out at a cardiologist. And that guy, man, needed triple bypass, immediate surgery. And they said, hey, by wearing this, it probably saved their life, because that guy would just that's what he thought was normal. So I'm good. This is just how I am, where no, that isn't normal. And you won't know that until you check, right? Like, so an example would be maybe using, again, if you're monitoring sleep, people think 4 hours is normal, or like 5 hours is normal. Hey guys, that isn't not only normal, that'll kill you way earlier if you go long enough doing that. And even just now saying that, this was something that clicked for me, Nick. You said you look at heart rate, which you've got me on that. So I always look. I hit 47 last night, and at the right timing. So that I have learned, Nick knows this. I was always under the impression you're supposed to have a good meal or some kind of protein right before bed. And I kept not getting my best sleep scores. And then one time it said, hey, are you eating before you go to sleep because your heart rate isn't coming down because you're probably digesting? And I was like, yeah, I am. And then I started just changing my schedule of when I have that meal. And that changed the quality of my sleep, at least according to that data. And now I stick with it. But another one that is just big, and we can never underestimate right off the bat, before we look at HRV, before we look at heart rate, before we look at changes in body temperature, holy cow, just how many hours are you sleeping, right? And I think that was the biggie for Jim, right? Like, I think the first biggie was he just started getting way more hours, right? Like, we got him, to where he's an 8-hour guy now, where he was a 5-hour guy, and he thought that was normal, and that's not going to work. So for everybody listening too, the tech can be, again, a powerful tool to create the habits you want these people to have. And they don't have to be You don't got to get into the weeds or into the minutia. Hey, that's great that you have that too. But here's the thing. I'll throw this out to everybody. Listen, do you know how many hours of sleep you got last night to the minute? And if you don't, you're just guessing, right? Just like, hey, a scale is really good tech. When was the last time you got on a scale and weighed yourself? If you don't know, then how's your diet working? You know what the answer is? You don't know. You're just guessing right now. Then you could take it to a bod pod or you could take it to an in body, but it's got to start somewhere with the big rocks. And most people aren't even looking at that, right?
Right.
So, whereas Nickel send me stuff. He's like, hey, we got guys with a sweat patch on and we're looking at different things. Guys, there's super high tech. But if that person isn't even drinking enough water throughout the day, who cares about the sweat patch, right? Like, so do you agree with some of it can help you with the big stuff?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then, again, and you're going to have clients. I think the other important thing is like across the spectrum, because you're going to have the guys that are gals that want to get in the weeds. So it's good to educate yourself and take on, advanced learning. That's why you're at Lionel. So you can understand that and you can break that down. But then also there's the big rocks, right? Of just like, one of the biggest. So I was just at a talk on Sunday with the science director for Whoop, right? She's talking about, and one of the biggest things they saw with kind of availability and sleep quality was just consistency. Just going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, having a schedule.
Yeah,
Again,
routine. A
very,
routine.
very basic thing of like, you're getting your body, set on a circadian rhythm. So I think that's important, and don't lose sight of that. But at the same time, be prepared that if you have that client that, okay, I've got that, let's move to the next and to go deeper.
Yeah, no, I love it. And it is, I don't know, guys, we're all trying to perform optimally. We're all trying to, yeah, again, I don't want to throw it too far out there, but everybody, like Nick said, if you are a student at Lionel and you are listening to this, it's almost like there are layers. You got to understand the layers, right? And I had an old line from a Russian coach I had, and he'd always say, don't put on your tie before you put on your shirt, right? And he would always say, man, you Americans, you love to put on your tie before you put on your shirt. And I'd be like, what do you mean? And he'd be like, well, look at you. You guys want to have creatine, but you also eat a bunch of McDonald's, right? Like, so he would say, man, you got to get the diet right first before you ever worry about the supplement. So for everybody listening, supplement means in addition to like making sure you getting all the things maybe you're not getting with that really good diet. And it's almost the same thing. Like, hey, I don't care if you know your HRV with sleep. If you can't get 8 hours, you're missing the big thing. Or I don't care, you hit your protein macro, but you don't know how many calories you need, and you took in 2,000 extra calories, and you're gaining weight, right? So it's almost what I think is so neat, and hopefully all the students are dissecting this out, is that, man, every bit of your education counts. There are all these layers. See, Nick and myself, hey guys, between us, man, there's 50 years of experience. There's 20, 30 years of higher education. And all of that adds up for us to just quickly talk about these things really quick. So for instance, hey, if you've heard the three letters HRV today a bunch of times, if you don't know what that means, see, you need to understand that first before you can ever influence it, right? Hey, if you don't even understand heart rate, how it works, how it might be affected by the digestive system, maybe you miss, and then how it will influence sleep, maybe you're missing that one, right? So man, down to we talked about accelerometers and how fast that means bar speed is happening and what that might have to do with strength, power development. Like, this is the magic of exercise science that we want you to learn here, so that it's this great combination of knowing it, but then being able to apply it for the result that you want. But ultimately, man, there is so much there. I'm never forgetting about. But as a student, hey, it's not like I'm hoping you don't just go buy some tech, but you never learned all the pieces behind it too, which are critically important.
Yeah, you definitely have to understand the first things first is, and I'm glad you bring that up, is like understand the science behind those metrics, right?
Yeah.
Understand that how hydration affects heart rate, how all these other variables, and so then you can take action on that data. That's the only way you can take action on that data. If you understand what makes up heart rate variability and what factors influence Now you can take action on that data. Otherwise, you're just like, oh, I got a high number, I got a low number. I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and I think it counts as depth, right? Like an interesting thing in education, Nick, and you hear this all the time, and it's going to change. It's going to continue to change. So, for instance, my kids no longer learn to write in script. My oldest did. Second one, I don't think did it all. Third and fourth, they don't do it at all. My kids will often say, they're getting ready for the ACT or the SAT, and they'll be like, "Why am I learning calculus or why am I learning trigonometry? I'll never use it." And hey, maybe they got an argument there a little bit on some things. I think you do have to have mathematics. I believe that. But that's arguable. But here's what I would say. But if a student of exercise science said, "Hey, why do I got to understand an EKG?" Or, "Hey, why do I have to learn, how many calories is in protein, carbs, or fat?" Or hey, all of that is bedrock to what everything else is built on. And I want everybody to understand that and never forget it. So, hey, I make the joke a lot. Hey, the Krebs cycle. I always say, "Hey, how's that working for you?" But you know what? Hey, you got to have it because it builds off everything else. Or why do I got to learn all this anatomy? Why can't I just know the pecs? Can't I just know the quads? And it's just, man, I think the better you understand all these foundational elements that the pieces are built on, the better coach you're going to be. So I will never discount my degrees or my experience, and I wouldn't give back any of the classes because every one of those has been so valuable. Because, like Nick said, I wouldn't be able to understand the tech and what and be able to pull out what I'm learning from it if I never had that bedrock stuff first. So that's just a reminder to all the Lionel students. Hey guys, you got to put in the work. The beginning stuff, you might not be as into it. You might be like, "Man, I want to get right into tech or wearables or speed training." But man, if you don't have a basis of energy systems, if you don't have a basis of muscle fiber types and anatomy, if you don't understand basic biomechanics and physics, you're never going to be the coach you could be, right? And so it's kind of a full circle thing. The tech kind of, you could say, replaces that, and like I'll say, no, the tech enhances or complements that. You got to have both. What are your thoughts on that one, Nick? Although I made a pretty good case for it.
you made a great case, and I'm just going to put a bow on that. When you talk about compliments, kind of something that we're doing here when we talk about tech and education, we have complimentary micro courses that we're going to be offering at Lionel. So we're going to have one, Nutrition Decoded, the science behind what you eat. That's a great one, right? Carbs and Performance, the science of fueling your body for success. So learning about carbohydrates, some of you might have heard carbs is evil. You definitely want to take that course. Mastering Muscle Recovery, the science of protein and performance. Who doesn't like protein? Martin's talking about the pecs, right? You want to get jacked and tan, you got to get some protein in after you exercise.
Nick will be proud. Yesterday, my third daughter, she is all in. She was like, "Dad, I hit 120 grams of protein today." And even my wife was like, "What's going on here? What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Hey, I need at least a gram of protein for every pound body weight to perform." Right. So
you got that. So she could be featured on this course. And then the last course we're offering, which is again, complimentary micro course, something that you could do on your computer, on your phone. Fuel to Recover and to Perform, a complete guide to supplement for athletes. Now, again, Martin talked about that supplements are in addition to, but it's good to know not only what supplements are ergogenic, what supplements might give you benefit in performance, but there's also things you could take that could be ergolytic, which means it could hurt your performance. And so you want to know that as well. So again, understanding that science behind the supplements, you're going to make better choices for you and your clients.
Boom. So, hey, it's taking advantage of it. At Lionel, we are trying to push not only education forward in particular, only in the field of exercise science, but also make it, pun intended, digestible for you, where it is what you need and to get it across. But I think we made a great argument for that, like by starting with, man, the ultimate advancements with technology, but then reminding you that none of that has value if you don't know how to discern the information and also take action on it. in a certain way. So never forget, we talk about Jim wearing a ring, but then he's got to have coaches behind him that can change his behaviors according to the data that we find. So guys, the world will never replace you as a coach. People are going to need people, and your education is going to be just as valuable using that. So, hey, we have hit another half hour power. I think these are great. If you think these are great, write us about it and let us know, as well as other topics you'd like to hear or different stuff you'd like to know about. But hey, we thank you for your attention on this stuff too. But the best way to thank us is actually taking action on it. So whether it's trying out one of those micro courses or advancing your either personal experience with tech to help more people or helping get the word out on it, you're going to make somebody better, right? So, hey, from your Chancellor, Martin Rooney, and from the resident science geek, Nick Barringer, Chief Academic Officer, we're signing off for another Roar session. And hey, we look forward to the next time we all go into the Roar.